Okay, hello and welcome everybody. This is D.H. Thorne with my guests. I have Tatum, Damian Draco, Green Miss Nix, Amobius, and the Mad Hatter. What's up, guys? We're going to be doing a class today on the solar plexus and some other things relating to magic. So let's review a little bit. Let's see who remembers some things that we talked about. First and foremost, the root chakra. What do we use that for? Now, of course, this is, I don't want to say this is like a traditional method. This is like the D.H. Thorne interpretation of these things. What does the root chakra correspond? What do we use this for, especially in regards to magic? Who wants to answer that?
To feel
Okay.
the connection.
Okay. To not just to feel it, it's to make the connection. The root is about connection. The root is about
Okay.
connection. So it's like if you touch your hands together before you even feel anything, it's that connection. And keeping in mind that that connection's always there, even if you don't feel like you're touching something, because you're always in a non-dual sense, meaning not two, means everything is one. So the root is your connection to that material concept, the firm concept of being. It has a lot to do with your sense of security, with your sense of not so much confidence like I'm a strong, powerful person or something, but confidence in the sense that my needs are taken care of. I have shelter, I have food, I have, the things that I need for my life. Give me 1 second. I just want to adjust one thing that I forgot to do. And we'll be right back. I want to put my curtain up because I see some of my lights through my curtain. I forgot that. Set the whole place on fire. Good. So, speaking of security, that would have been really funny if that like touched the thing. Then you would have seen my root chakra scream. All right, so it's very much about security and not comfort per se, but security in the sense that you feel like all of your most important needs are taken care of. Um, People who have a lot of anxiety and stuff like that, a lot of times their root chakra is maybe a little out of whack. People who are maybe they don't care about anything, and I don't mean that they are not attached. Like it's one thing to be not attached, but it's another thing to be so aloof, like you're disconnected from reality. That would be, a very, very, very out of balance type of root chakra. So having that taken care of is important. Now, one of the things that Green Mist and I were discussing before was, are chakra real, or what are they? What does it mean? Now, chakra are, the way I've identified it is, in every human being, there are centers of awareness within your bodily awareness. These centers of awareness, they correspond to what the mystics of the ancient world, considered energy centers. And each one of these corresponds to different things about you. And in investigating these ideas, if you sit in stillness for a while, if you sit in meditation, even if I don't tell you about these things, most of us, with just the slightest little bit of encouragement, can move our awareness to certain parts of our body very, very easily. In fact, you can move your awareness almost to the point of moving where you think your thinking is happening, almost. I've heard of some people even able to do that. Now, the sense of where your self is, or your sense of center of awareness, you shift this all the time in your life. You do this when you're walking, you do this when you're driving, you do this when you pick an object up. I've often told people that if you ever drop an object and it falls down behind a couch or under something, and you have to like feel around, you can't see it, and you kind of like, everybody knows this look you do, oh, where is this thing? Your awareness is going into your hand. Like you can move your center of awareness mostly into your hand so that you almost feel like you're your hand and the rest of your body is forgotten. In much the same way you shift your awareness when you move your eyes around. You actually see this whole thing going on at once, but you're only focused on a very small little blip of time and space. So when that happens, when you shift your awareness, that's actually a similar thing to what the chakra are and what they do. In other words, while we're feeling our center of awareness moving through our body, it's not that different. but there's certain places that are easier than others, right? And it's not just nerves. It's not just to do with where your nerve endings are. It's something a little bit more subtle about it, right? Because you could say, well, there's certain parts of your body, your lips, these little areas here and all these kind of things that are more sensitive that you could easily say, oh, I feel those. But it's not just about feeling. If it was just about feeling, that's a little different. It's a center of awareness where you can actually bring your conscious attention and feel centered in it. And that has a lot to do with it. So the idea that they are just, and I say the word just, that doesn't mean that they're not these things, but this idea that they are just energy centers, that somehow that's what they do, is they regulate energy like a transformer in a computer or something like that. It's like a circuit or something. While it is correct in some of the traditional sense, they didn't have quite the same conceptualization of energy that we have now with circuits and all this stuff. To them, it was more like passageways for air or water to flow. And their idea of energy wasn't like electricity, zapping around. It was more like a flow of blood and air and just life energy through things. A lot of us have had a sensation where, like, if you shudder or something, you can get a sensation of warmth spreading through your body. When you do certain activities, you can kind of feel things move through your body. So some of these sensations sort of helped give birth to some of these ideas. And Harvest is buzzing. I'm going to mute you. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Sorry, Harvest. If you need to say something, Harvest, just put it in Inner Sanctum. Just type it there real quick and I'll unmute you because that's really buzzy. All right. So these centers of awareness that we have, as we connect to them with these meditations, this improves our overall ability to do a lot of things in a spiritual and magical sense. It really assists our ability to connect with things. That's the root. You make that connection with things. To feel, which is that sacral chakra, which we talked about. So we also mentioned that the solar plexus is what? Who wants to answer that one? Since I've said it, but let's see who remembers. What's the solar plexus for?
Physical energy center.
It's primarily about physical energy, action. The real key word. What's that? Projection. Yep, projection of energy. So action's a good word. I think the word action's probably the best word. If there was a single word to sum them up, right, or a single statement that sums them up, the root is I am, the sacral is I feel, and the solar plexus is I act. Okay. Now, you could just make it, being, feeling, action, right, if you want to even simplify it further. So action can relate to physical actions, like you're physically walking around, you're moving things, but we can also project various forms of energy that have to do with the physical center of self. Now, the thing is, when we are projecting energy into and through objects in magic, it's really not just the solar plexus, but a lot of people will center things in the solar plexus, and they will visualize things flowing through that center. Okay, so hold on one second. Grab something. Could you quiet the bird? Okay, good. All right, so let's do this. Okay, before we get into the deep meditation, let's take a moment, and just for a second, I want you guys to just sit still, and I want you to sit straight, and I want you to sort of find that root location. And I want you to, just for a moment, just become fully aware of that. Some people actually have a hard time with the root, even though it's like not a difficult place to find on your body, like you can touch it easily enough. Putting your awareness there can be a little bit difficult, but put your awareness in that area so that you are almost excluding other sensations. And just for a moment. Okay. And then move it up a little bit to just in and below your belly button, just in and below your navel. And you can sort of help find that by flexing your abdominal muscles a little bit, like, expand and contract, especially with breathing. you'll feel a spot that just feels like, when you're breathing, it almost feels like there's a string tugging on something just behind and below your belly button, just tugging on it and letting it go is what it'll feel a little bit like as you do that. Remember, when you breathe in, you want your abdominal wall to expand. And when you breathe out, you can let it descend. You can really feel that. Now, there's another spot right almost exactly where your diaphragm is. If you've ever been punched in the breadbasket in martial art training or something, you know what I'm talking about. It's right below your solar plexus, you know, the bone, that little bone that comes off of your chest bone. There's a location there. There's actually a lot of nerves in a lot of these places if you look. There's actually nerve ganglion. There's like little knots of nerves and other things that correspond to these locations in a lot of cases. So if you focus on these, then you can find them, but you'll also be finding a part of your body that corresponds to it. So this is where the idea that chakra are real as chakra comes from. Chakra are not real as chakra, however. In other words, chakra is just an idea. Chakra is just a picture that we've painted as a collective, as a group of people, with ideas. We sort of decide, oh, this is what a chakra is. And because we lack maybe the language for it, inventive people in ancient history decided, hey, this reminds me of a water wheel or a fan or something. Because as I breathe, I can actually sense this force of energy and breath going in and out through those sections of the body. So if you put your awareness back in your root for a moment again, this is a hard one because it's so far away from your lungs, but you can actually not just imagine, but feel the energy of breath moving in and out through that area. There's a guy, Elliot Hulse, I think is his name, on YouTube. And he's got an interesting YouTube channel. And one of the things he used to talk about is breathing through your balls, right? And it's kind of like a joke, but it's dead serious. He's actually a very educated person about magic. And what's that, Jeff? I heard you talking. Okay. So he's like, you know, he does like a lot of bodybuilding and stuff like that. But he talks about like breathing through the balls. Now he's really talking about breathing through that root chakra. All right, hold on. I'm gonna mute you, Mad Hatter. There we go. Problems with the camera again. So breathing through that root chakra area, you can feel that as you're breathing in. Obviously, you know the breath is coming through your nose or your mouth and going down your throat and into your lungs. But you can get a feeling for air. And when I say air, it's not physical air. It is a flow. You can feel a flow coming in and out through any chakra. Okay? And that is how you sort of connect that physical with that psychic, spiritual energy, body energy that we're talking about when we keep saying that, okay, these things have an energetic truth to them. Okay? So once again, the lower three chakra are the bodily chakra. And the lower three chakra are used mostly as a way for us as a conscious being to interact with, integrate, and feel and connect to our physical awareness. Not that the physical and the spiritual are separated, but they are distinct from each other. That is certain. You know, the issue with duality versus non-duality is that the dualist will say, yes, but that's obviously different from that, so therefore there's two. But the truth of the matter is there's only one coin. It's just got two different aspects, two different faces. You only have one hand, but there's a side that you call the back and a side you call the front. And where they begin and end is a matter of debate because there's really no difference. They are really the same thing. When you close your hand, is the center, is the palm of your hand pulling the back of your hand closed, or is the back of your hand pulling it, you know, pushing it closed? And then a smart aleck will say, well, it's actually the tendons in your arm doing it. I get it. But you see what I'm saying? Which is really doing it, okay? It's all one thing. They're all happening together. So in the same context, the chakra system works exactly the same way. The chakra system is a physical thing. It is a physical manifestation of something that has multiple levels of distinction that you can become aware of and interact with in a spiritual or psychosomatic way. So the solar plexus is going to be about mostly physical action. Now, when I say mostly physical action, there is, of course, a spiritual element, even though it's in the physical. The solar plexus is actually in what I call the middle third, or the manifestation third of your chakras. In other words, it's the solar plexus, the heart, and the throat. The reason why these are important is whenever we express, do, or feel, or assert feeling over things, that is our ability to manifest our will and desire in this world happens through these middle third. So the lower third is how we connect to the world. The middle third is about us and our ability to interact both ways with the world. And the upper third is about our ability in the spiritual sense to connect, interact, and express and sense the spiritual world. So let's go back to what's one of our old exercises. You guys have incense ready. Are you guys ready to do that part? So what we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're not going to invoke a spirit. We're not going to do that. We're not going to make this into a religion where we are, like trying to appease a spirit and ask them for things all the time. Today, we're going to dedicate this to ourselves a little bit. Okay? Now, who remembers some of the significance of incense? I know we didn't go deep into it, but who knows some of the significance of incense? Why is incense sort of an important element in ritual magic or in any of these things? And I keep seeing people dropping it in and out. Hopefully it's just connection issues you guys are having. Hopefully it's nothing serious, but several of you guys disappeared and came back a couple times. Does anybody remember what the significance of incense is? Anybody want to be brave? Or take a guess? I'm hearing a lot of no's out there. Okay. So incense is a wonderful way to sort of create an environment in which your conscious awareness, your subconscious awareness in particular, is brought back. Oh, there's a loud buzz. Okay. All right.
I can hear now.
Oh, okay. Who's having the loud buzz? Okay, you know what it is. It's probably, yeah, I know what's going on. So I muted it on my end. There's someone who's probably transmitting. Sorry guys, I didn't see that. Okay. Yeah, all right. So Mad Hatter thinks it's his computer. Okay. So somebody here is probably buzzing really bad. I muted somebody for me, but I don't know who it is. So if you guys go through and just mute everybody that's not me necessarily, maybe that'll help. We could figure out who it is. It was Harvest for me who was buzzing really bad. If it's my microphone, do you think it's my microphone that's buzzing? Because I do have a slightly busted microphone, so I was going to get in. It's not me then? Okay. Yeah. Okay, hold on. That's unfortunate. Let me pause my recording so we can get that out.
When you're talking about the lower three and then the middle three being how we are, and that's what I've this week been kind of trying to take it away from, just the balls of energy into awareness.
Okay. Yeah, so those middle three is where you really have to understand that. So the heart is your center of being, your true center of being in your awareness is in, they say the heart chakra. Now your center of mind is up here, obviously, but your center of being is in your heart chakra. In every culture, every mystical culture going way back, it's always been pretty much in the center of, your chest, basically, your center of being here. Some will say your center is your hara, which is lower, but they're not wrong. That's more of an energy center. But your center of being in most cultures, in many cultures, has always been the heart. And this is the idea of your being. And the first two things, the very next two things, the very next two chakra are the throat and the solar plexus. And it's kind of like two hands. You have the left hand and the right hand. And the left hand is one and the right hand is the other. And they both interact with one version of reality by way of that. It's a way that our being kind of separates intentionally our experience, because it's not that we necessarily want to be separate from everything, but this experience of separation creates this illusion of being. And this illusion of being is what our conscious self is enjoying. It's not even, you're not a victim of it. It's not something that's happening to you. It's not something that is broken. It's not something you have to fix. You know, a lot of right-hand path traditions will be trying to encourage you to fix this all the time. You've got to fix your sense of ego and sense of self, and remove this sense of mortality and all this stuff. You're here for a reason. You want to experience that. And the goal is to, if it's time for you to grow out of that, then that's the goal. But if it's not time yet, it is to fulfill it and have an experience of it, because only by experiencing it and fulfilling it can you really be free of it. It's kind of like in a lot of Buddhist teachings or things like that teach about non-attachment. Well, you can become attached to non-attachment to the point where you become more and more attached and you can't let go of anything. And that is actually something that tends to manifest in human beings the most, because of our materialistic worldview, in the lower three chakras. So when we get those sort of in a better state, it kind of helps. Now, so far we've been doing a lot of fancy stuff where we meditate on it, we think about it, we sort of see it as a glowing center, and it's very esoteric and cool. But there's another component to these practices that you can add, in which when you're working on your root chakra, you need to be contemplating, visualizing, or somehow reliving a moment where you felt really just connected to things, where have you ever just sat really quietly and just felt like a rock and just felt like a log on the ground, and just like, and you're just here and you're just present, okay? That would be a moment where you were really firm in your root. You could also, if you're having issues, you could also think about something that made you feel secure. So for example, when you were a child, maybe you had a good parent who treated you well, and you had a bad day and they'd come and give you chicken soup. And that feeling of feeling secure and safe, that feeling is also associated with the root chakra. And if you're out of balance down there, it will often manifest as a sense of insecurity, anxiety, mania, maybe not greed in the gluttonous sense, but greed in the I feel like I don't have enough sense. Like, you've ever met those people that they're always penny pinching and worried about having enough money no matter how much money they have? That's often a very root chakra type of thing. They don't feel secure. People who do a lot of hoarding, for example, sometimes that's a root chakra issue. Now, when I say it's a root chakra issue, the mistake people make is to think that, that means the problem is the root chakra and that's what's broken. And if I fix my root chakra, I fix my problems. That's a very backwards way of thinking. The root chakra is more like, if your cheeks are flushed red, okay, you don't cure the sickness, or if you have a fever, you don't cure the sickness by curing the fever, right? The fever is something that your body does to help rid itself of the toxins and germs that are giving you that fever. In the same sense, when your root chakra is imbalanced, or your solar plexus or any other chakra is imbalanced, or not working, even if it's blocked, for example, that is not to say that if you just cure that, your whole life is going to be better. What happens is it's a holistic approach. When you recognize that these are out of whack and you work with them in tune with corresponding action and effort and emotion and thought, when you do all of these things together, it works really well. You've probably heard me say that doing magic requires a physical, a mental, and a spiritual component. If you miss any of them, so for example, if you're doing magic on a mental and physical level, but there's no spiritual center going on, it's like having a tricycle with two wheels and you got to like tip it over or lean back to make it work. The same thing applies to this. If you're doing magic, if you're doing spirituality, if you're doing growth and centering in yourself, if you're trying to balance your chakra, if you see them only as, oh, well, I just have to balance the chakra, then you're even doing worse. You're just on one wheel the whole time. Imagine trying to pedal a tricycle with, like, only on one corner wheel. You can't do anything. You can't even make it move. This is why a lot of people fail. However, most of the proper training in chakra work does incorporate on some level all three of these things, whether it just be meditative exercise that just makes you calm and comfortable and lets your mind do the things it needs to do, whether it's chanting mantra that you sort of know what it means, visualizing things. So there is a component of each, but the more you can interact and integrate these three things, the better. So back to what I was saying about incense. What did I do with mine? I put it down, here it is. So incense, as I was saying, incense, people have used it as offerings to spirits for a long time. And there's all different kinds of incense, obviously. But incense puts us in a mood, it kind of sets the mood. And that mood creates a better, we'll say, connection to spiritual work. Now, if you can't use incense because your home has rules, or you just, whatever, you don't trust yourself with fire, or whatever your issue is, you don't have to use it. You can use mood lighting. You can use aromatherapy with oils and all that stuff. All of that is on the table. This is not necessary. It is just another prop. So for those of you who are going to be using incense, we're going to do a little exercise where we're going to bring energy up through the earth, and we're going to kind of center it in that solar plexus for a moment. And we're going to charge this incense stick, if you guys have one, and then we're going to light it and burn it. Now, what does that do? Does anybody want to tell me what that does by charging this with that and then burning it, what that does? Don't be afraid to be wrong.
Energy.
It does what?
You release the energy.
Okay, so it releases the energy symbolically. Remember that. It's symbolic. Your subconscious mind, as you're doing this, your spiritual center, your mind, body, and spirit, is empowering the egregore of this object, because this is also a tulpa. Okay, this is an egregoric tulpa. This is also a figment of your imagination. Yes, there's something here. It's not that it's not in existence. It is simply that the thing you think it is not real. So you think it's a stick of incense, but that's a very human anthropomorphic place to be. Okay, this is something indescribable. If you try to really define this, you can have all kinds of platonic forms that you say this is, but what this actually is, the substance that it is undefinable. It is like pure chaos, and you've determined that this shape is a stick of incense. That's kind of the best way to think of it. So what you're doing is you're charging your conceptual entity that exists only in your subjective world with this intention and energy. And this is sort of, some would say, well, why don't you just project that energy directly? Well, the same reason why you might do, like you might stretch a rubber band, okay? It can be very difficult to like flick your finger hard enough to cause it to sting. But if you stretch that rubber band, you're kind of putting energy into it and you're storing it up, and then it can be released more or less all at once, or in a subconscious way that you're not thinking about. One of the things you want to do when you're doing magic is you're trying to get to a point where your subconscious mind is really doing the part that your conscious mind refuses to think it can do. Your subconscious mind doesn't have a problem with the idea that magic works. Your conscious mind, however, being very analytical, goes, yeah, but how? Yeah, but why? Yeah, but what did I do? Yeah, but, and it's just full of yeah, buts, or just. It uses the word just a lot. Isn't this just a stick of incense? Your subconscious mind goes, yeah, but I can charge this with my intention, and that can be my manifestation focus. So when you're burning this down, your subconscious mind is releasing its attachment to the energy that it's built up into this object, into this tulpa. And when that happens, you can do it gradually, you can burn it all at once. There's different kinds of ways to do it. But incense is a nice gradual shift, and it sets up a flow more than anything. One other way to understand it is that, I don't know how many of you guys know how to use a siphon. Does anybody here know how to use a siphon? Like if you siphon gas out of a car or something like that. How many of you are nerdy enough to know what a siphon is?
I know what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you set up a siphon, you get a little suction going and it kind of goes over the hump, and that causes it to flow. And what the reason it causes it to flow is as the weight of the water pulls down, it sucks more out, right? So it overcomes the air pressure and the force of gravity, and it, because the way the suction works, it literally just pulls it down and over the hump, and it creates a constant flow, right? You can pretty much empty a gas tank doing that. Well, by the same sense, you can set up a flow with your subconscious by charging an object, and as it burns, that is like the flow being started. So this energy impulse that you're giving it in a subconscious way can be imagined in much the same way. This is why in a magical ritual, yes, it's important to build up a lot of energy, just like if you're trying to siphon gas out of a mostly empty gas tank, you've got to get it started a lot more than if it's pretty much full already, because you just got to get it over that hump and below the water line. So if something's really easy to do, like let's say I want to have my mother call me, right? I want to do a spell to have my mother call me. She calls me every day. So all I really probably have to do is just go, call me, Mom. And at some point today, she'll probably call me, right? There's a chance she won't, but she probably will. But let's say I want to have my uncle call me, who never calls me. Well, that's going to take a little bit more. I might have to do a more elaborate ritual to get that flow of energy going to encourage that scenario to happen. Okay. And that is why you might want to do more elaborate or powerful, and even, it doesn't even have to be a ritual, but some more energetic process, something that's more significant to get that energy going, to get that moving for you. So, okay. So you guys have your incense ready, or whoever's using it? Whatever type you're using. Okay. So as usual, we're going to begin first by making connection to it. You can hold it in your left hand. You can just hold it by the end. You can hold it wherever you want, but make that connection to it. Bang, I'm connected to this. Feel that connection. You don't have to go feeling it all up like we did the one time. Just feel it. Feel it in your hands. Know where it is. Smell it. Before it even burns, it'll have a smell. Get all those visceral sensations going. Really identify this tulpa. Really, this exists. Maybe look for little nuances in it. Look at all the little grains in it. This is not something you have to do every time you do magic, but this is a good practice to do in things. Okay. Now, with your eyes closed or open, doesn't matter. we're going to be using even breaths. We're not going to be doing anything fancy with our breathing yet. We'll probably start doing that in the next class or the one after that. I just want you to breathe evenly and just get yourself centered in your breath work. You guys have all done the other meditations, so you kind of know how to do some of this already. Just clear your mind. Don't worry about what you're going to do. Just let your mind empty. Just hear my voice. And if a thought comes, just let it go. Just try to maintain a connection to that incense in your hand. Okay, now in your next breath in, what I want you to do is I want you to visualize or feel or know that the world around you, the earth, the air, the sky, everything is filled with latent energy. It's always there. It's always moving. There's always a flow, like a river that's always flowing. And that river can be seen as time. It can be seen as whatever, but really it's you. You're what's moving. It's your consciousness that's moving through what is. And as you breathe in, I want you to sort of feel that flow go through you. Don't worry about where. Just sort of feel almost like you're like rowing a boat. It's why Row, Row, Row Your Boat's actually a pretty good song for a spiritual person. And every breath is like you're just giving it another row, and you're just thrusting yourself forward more. But in this case, it's energy coming in from all around you, and it's entering you through no particular place. It's just going into you. And when you breathe out, you're just letting it back out again. This is why all the ancients treated the breath as the mystical source of energy. Let's do this for a minute. Okay, now I want you to visualize, feel, and know the best you can this energy that you just connected to as best you can. I want you to feel it when you breathe in, entering through the root chakra. When you breathe in, it gets brighter and you feel more connected and more secure. And when you breathe out, it fades a little, but it's still brighter than it was at first. And just do this and feel this charging of the root chakra. Just feel it getting more charged. And if you find yourself wandering around your body or finding it hard to be focused, that's okay. Just bring yourself back to the root. Let's do that 3 times. Now, in your next breath, I want you to charge that root chakra, but when you breathe out, instead of letting the energy just out of your body, visualize, imagine, and direct it up into your sacral chakra, right behind your belly button. And I want you to breathe in through the root, up into the sacral, and out through the sacral. And do this 3 times. Remember to extend your diaphragm when you breathe in, and let it fall when you're breathing out. Almost like you're pumping blood or air through the root up into the solar plexus and back out. Now, after that 3rd breath, or if you're still doing it, that's fine. I want you to envision, feel, and know that energy is now entering not just through the root, but through the sacral as well. It's almost like you're breathing through 2 nostrils instead of 1. Everything's moving in through both, charging both, and just feel them charging 3 times. Focus on the feeling and the connection. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to bring that up into the solar plexus. And now sometimes it helps with the solar plexus for the first few breaths to breathe through the mouth because it's a much more energetic kind of breath, but you don't get as much, air through it, but it can feel like, oh, I'm breathing more. But try to focus on breathing through your nose and your mouth unless you can. And I want you to visualize a bright yellow light where that solar plexus is, just a bright golden yellow, like rays of sunlight, just getting brighter and brighter right in that spot. Every time you breathe in, and visualize that energy traveling up through those chakra into that location. Try to put your center of awareness there. I want you to try to visualize and feel not just a light, but a warmth. I want you to think about a time when you were really active, maybe something you did in sports or something you did like you pulled an all-nighter at work and you didn't feel tired, or That feeling you get when you drink a lot of coffee and you're just buzzed, but not like bad buzz, but just in control and can do anything. If you've ever done martial arts, that first time you ever broke a board or the first time you ever won a match in sparring, that first time you succeeded in anything and accomplished something and did something. Now I want you to do this 3 times. We're going to do it 3 more times. I've been talking a lot. I'll give you 3 times. And after the 3rd time, I want you to direct energy, to direct that warmth, to direct that light, to direct that intention and those good feelings of accomplishment through your body, or you can either you can follow the course of your body, your arms, your legs, wherever you feel the energy is best projected. So I'm going to put it in my right hand because the right hand is the projection hand. And when I exhale, I'm going to breathe the energy. I'm not going to blow on the incense. I'm going to breathe the energy through my body or project it out of my solar plexus directly to, you can do that too. And visualize that stick or whatever you have for your incense getting brighter. And know that it's warmer and more energized and it is full of your intention. It is full of your action. And as you're charging this with this energy, you can feel it getting warmer, hopefully. You may even feel it getting warmer in places you're not touching it. You may even just hold it between your fingers and sort of feel the warmth in your hands. And as you're feeling that warmth, I want you to visualize, know, and intone to yourself your intention for your magical purpose today. I am going to learn to understand my energy, my ability to act through magic. Something like that, however you want to phrase it. I am going to learn to project energy, or you can even make it more certain. You can say, I project energy. I can project energy. I will project energy today. And you may even start to feel it getting hot or feeling warm between your fingers. You may feel a tingling in the tips of your fingers if you're holding it like I am. Okay. Now, when you're ready, you can light the incense. It has been charged well enough. You can spend as much time doing that as you want. You can sort of overdo it. It is possible. Because if you're doing it a lot, that means that you're not, if you prolong it a long time, like if you feel like, oh, it's not charged enough, that's actually your own conscious kind of, it's either telling you it's not enough, which is possible, but it could also be sort of self-defeating. If you spend a lot of time charging something, does it really get more energized necessarily, or is it really just like you're saying you don't trust your own energetic ability enough? Are you really kind of saying, I have to charge this so much because I'm just not good at it? Right? Is that what we're doing? So at some point you have to trust yourself that it's done enough. Now, obviously, magic rituals, some of them require multiple day actions. I often write about rituals that take 15 days, 30 days. That's not always necessary, but in a lot of these systems, there's a reason for it. And some of it's psychological. Some of it is to clear certain blockages. Some of it is to make you maybe a little bored with it, actually. So maybe you're not so attached to it. So that when you let go, it's kind of like, oh, I just spent a week doing this, right? But your subconscious has kind of like when Aboriginal people or animals walk through the woods, they often create a trail, and that trail just gets beaten down more and more, and it stays for a long time because they kind of harden the earth, right? And so we kind of harden the earth in our consciousness. When we think of the same things all the time, when we associate things a lot, it kind of wears a track in the earth, and it wears a track in our being. And our subconscious will, like a Pavlovian dog that has been conditioned to respond to a whistle or a bell, in much the same way, when we do the same practice over and over, it's easier and quicker to connect. I personally believe in my own work that it doesn't matter how long, how often, or how much I charge an object necessarily. You can charge the humblest of objects with the most infinite of energy in the most insignificant amount of time, or you can spend days, months, and years doing it. It's really more about revelation, intuition, and it's almost like reaching enlightenment, I guess. You know, in a lot of the Eastern cultures, there's this idea that it takes lifetimes. You know, it could take 30 lifetimes or 3 seconds. Okay, because someone who's maybe lived 30 lifetimes will have it in 3 seconds when they achieve it. It's really instantaneous. It's a sudden revelation. That's one form of Zen. It's a sudden revelation. And it's meant to take a circuitous path. It's meant to take kind of like a long, it's why the Enso is so important. It's literally a swoosh around. You kind of come back to where you start. So in much the same way, when we charge these objects, it can be all at once. It can just be a sudden, like a horn going off, or it can be a very slow, gradual thing. And in practice, it helps to do it slow and gradual, so that when you do it in ritual, you don't have to do that. Like, how many of you guys have watched my ritual videos? Have you guys seen my live rituals? I'm sure most of you have, right? And if you haven't, that's fine. Okay. Have you noticed how long I spend doing all the charging and stuff? Not very long, right? Maybe 5 minutes or something, you know. And sometimes I've done some preliminary stuff before that because I don't feel like spending 20 minutes just sitting there, you know, looking at the candle or something. But I've centered myself, I've gotten connected with myself, and then I spend a short amount of time energizing things. And you can do it with intensity, or you can do it with calmness, you can do it with passion, etc. And a lot of this comes from the solar plexus, because again, the solar plexus is the root of our action, our energy, and our intention. Just like, I'm just going to do something. So you'll notice also, and we're going to get more into breath work later. You know, that's something we should probably start on soon. But so long as you're using even breathing, you're not doing it wrong. But if you refer to Become the Maelstrom, I have what's called Yin and Yang Breathing. That's one version of it. There's simpler versions. There's easier ways. But I wanted to give people like numbers, so it gives them something to work on. You know, you breathe in for this amount of time, you hold it for this amount of time, you breathe out for that amount of time. But the reality is, I don't count to myself that much. I will literally breathe in for a certain amount of time, sometimes hold it, and then breathe out. Really, it's what it feels like. If I'm trying to push energy out of my body and into something, I will inhale shorter than I will exhale. And if I'm really trying to charge something hardcore, if you ever watch my videos, you'll see me go, and I'll be breathing out for a longer period with a lot, not force, not like, but a sensation like I'm pushing it through something, like an obstacle. I'm pushing it through something, like I'm feeding it through a small, I'm compressing it as I breathe it out, kind of like going like that. Okay. So I'm going, and I'm creating this sensation that I'm pushing all my energy out. Okay. And if I'm trying to energize myself, I will breathe out quickly and then do the same thing inside. I go, okay. And if you try that, especially what I just did, some of you are going to get lightheaded and keel over. So be very careful. I'm not kidding. Most people can only do that a half dozen times and they're going to get lightheaded. Okay. It does something when you are inhaling and you're creating a little bit of an obstruction, not a lot, a controlled obstruction, not like covering your mouth where you can't breathe, but just a little bit of an obstruction. Something in your body opens up the air and blood vessels a little bit, and that oxygenated energy really hits your system extra. As above, so below. If our body is energized, our spiritual center is also energized. So this is how that works. And in reverse, when you're breathing out, you're really kind of expelling more of that energy. So we're going to use the simplified version of that. at some point in our magic. For today, we didn't have to. But for if you want to try it on your own, the trick is you've got to make sure, this is sort of like a style of Qigong, by the way. You have to make sure that you are balancing your breath so that if you do a lot of exhalation work, you follow it up with either very neutral breathing for a while to regulate yourself back to normal, or you do a little bit of that positive yang breathing to energize yourself again first before you just walk away. Because you can sort of, I mean, you're not going to die. You're not going to make yourself sick. I'm not going to be one of those superstitious people. But it's not really that great for you to not balance when you're done. Okay? It's always a good practice to bring yourself back to balance when you're done. So, okay. How many of you are ready to meditate a little bit? How many of you have your mala ready? We're going to move on to that. So I've got a new set here I haven't used yet. So, okay. All right, looks like Mad Hatter's back. So Mad Hatter, make sure you mute Harvest. Harvest, if you have anything you need to say during this, just type it in the Inner Sanctum and I'll get to you there. I don't want to exclude you at all. But I think Harvest is why we're getting buzzing. I was saying, hey, Mad Hatter, welcome back. We're if you're having problems with the audio, just mute Harvest. They're the ones who is causing most of the buzzing. So if they need to talk, they're going to put it in Inner Sanctum. So.
All right, it sounds good now.
Okay, good. All right.
Adam.
All right, good. All right, so we're going to do solar plexus. Sorry you missed some of that, Mad Hatter, but you can, of course, follow up in watching this later. So, all right. So we're only going to do this for one cycle around. How many of you need a refresher on how to use your mallet? Does everybody remember how to use them from watching the videos?
I remember.
Okay. So good practice with this, okay, is going to be breathing in and breathing out. When you're breathing out, I like to reach forward. And when I breathe in, when I breathe out, I like to reach forward. When I'm breathing, I'm getting this backwards because I just do it and I don't think about it. When I'm breathing out, I reach forward. And when I breathe in, I pull it, or the other way. It doesn't really matter too much, but you're going to basically pull one beat at a time, okay, for each breath. And I want you to sit up fairly straight. I don't want you like reclining too much like you often see me do. Keep your body straight, okay? And while we're doing this and listening to this, I'm going to put this on the screen here. Hold on. Where is it? I lost it. There it is. Okay. So I'm going to be streaming this for you guys in a second. And if you guys want to join that stream, the video stream that I just put up, or you can go to the link that I gave you guys. So one complete breath in and out is one bead, okay, for those of you who don't remember. And while we're doing this, I'm going to be saying stuff during the audio. I want you to focus on the action part. I want you to focus on the projection of intention, of acting, of the things we talked about before, remembering an action we took, remembering something we did physically or whatever that brought us somewhere. So again, if that video skips out on you, just click the link, okay, in the Inner Sanctum chat. Okay, if everybody's ready, I'm going to hit play, and I will be with you guys shortly.
My actions have purpose. My purpose is action. Action is purposeless. I am purposelessness in action.
Hopefully nobody's sleeping. How many of you made it all the way around?
I did.
I did.
Okay. All right, good. Okay. So let's take a moment now. You shouldn't feel too sleepy from that one, although you still might. Let's take a moment. Let's do 3 cleansing breaths. And this time when you do it, I want you to mimic my hand movements. And as you do, I want you to visualize and feel energy going into your solar plexus and out. Ready? And then you can clap 3 times if you want. And you're done. Okay. Now, we're going to do an exercise in a moment, but I want to touch base with you guys for a moment. What were your experiences like through that? And there's 2 things I want to talk about it, though. Namely to do with the mantra that I used. If you guys noticed what I was saying, how many of you guys picked up on any of the maybe deeper meaning of some of those statements?
I noticed that I am action and action. That kind of got me thinking.
Okay.
Loophole.
What about purposelessness and action? Did that sound a little weird? Like, wouldn't you think action has a purpose? Like, right, it's always got a purpose, right? What do you think? Is there a little something weird about that?
I definitely noticed.
Oop, I lost you for a second. You noticed it? Okay. So when we say purposelessness and action, a lot of you are probably sitting there thinking, maybe, not everybody, some of you are probably thinking, shouldn't every action have a purpose? Doesn't action always have a purpose? Isn't purpose part of action? Now, the response to that is a simple question. Well, 2-part question. Would you consider waves on an ocean an action? Would you consider that action, something happening? Would you consider that action? Do waves have purpose? No.
Yes.
Do they? What's the purpose of the wave?
To me, it's just a flow, just to be a wave. To me.
But they don't really have a purpose, like, especially like humanity assigns to things. I'm doing this because I need this, because I want this, because It's sort of like that age-old question, why are we here? Okay. Action is purposelessness in action. Action doesn't need purpose. Why do you exist? Why do you live? And the why, if you give it too much meaning, that's attachment. You become attached to a meaning. You get stuck because it becomes about that a meaning. And how can you know exactly what that meaning really is? And you can choose it for yourself. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying people spend their whole lives and they think they find a meaning. They think they find a purpose for everything they're doing. And then they find that that purpose is false, or that purpose is not necessarily what they really wanted. This leads to a lot of, let me stop sharing my screen, by the way. This leads to a lot of disillusionment in the negative way, not in the positive way, the negative kind of disillusionment. Like, oh, nothing matters, it's nihilistic bullshit. The wave doesn't have a purpose. The sun doesn't have a purpose. Your life doesn't have a purpose. Your being doesn't have a purpose, yet it still is. It still moves. It still happens. It still flows. Now, the role and job of the ego is to sort of come up with its own purpose and to have joy in that purpose while it's there. So you're saying the wave has a purpose. It's to be a wave, well, not really. You're deciding that. You're choosing for the wave what its purpose is. That's not fair. That would be like me telling you that the purpose of your life is to achieve enlightenment or to achieve magic or to achieve this, that, and 6 other things. That's not fair. This would be like you telling yourself, my purpose in life is to do this, that, and 6 other things. That's not fair to you. Your intention is always happening. Your intention is always carrying itself out without your interaction, without your necessity of stepping in and saying, do it now. Now, you may say, do it now, and that's like a motivator. That's like a thing that you do. But why are you doing that even? What's motivating you to do that? And what's motivating that to make you do that? And so on. The solar plexus chakra is the intersection of that which does with that which is. It is the intersection of what you are with things that are being done. And the thing that's being done, of course, if you follow me much, you know I have this weird theory about consciousness and how that is moving through a block time universe, creating your experience of reality. Like, you're not actually doing anything. If I pick up this knife and I open it, did I do anything? Or was this knife already open in another universe and I just went there with my conscious experience? Which is it? Can you prove which one it is? I challenge any scientist to prove that, because you'll always end up with a solipsistic conundrum. You'll end up with the question, the chicken and the egg question. The only thing that is real is your conscious being, your conscious awareness being. That is what you are. All of this is illusory, but we can play with it, just like in any lucid dream. You can play with that dream, and you can reach out and connect to that dream and make it dance for you, just like you think you're making your body dance for you. But it's not going to behave like a machine. It's not going to behave, because it's not ultimately your ego that does it. Your ego is just along for the ride like anyone else. Your ego is like a child on a roller coaster, or in the beginning of The Simpsons with the steering wheel. You remember in the beginning of The Simpsons, and Maggie's sitting there with the steering wheel going beep, beep, as Marge is driving. And as Maggie turns, so does the car. And it's like, who's driving, Maggie or Marge? Your ego's Maggie. Your ego is like, oh, look at what I'm doing. I'm doing all this. This is amazing. Look how strong I am. Look at how I opened that knife. Look at how I impressed my teacher. Look at how that's your ego. It's an idiot. And it thinks it's in control. The right-hand path will tell you to squish that ego out and disregard it and discard it. The left-hand path embraces the ego, but keeps it in its proper place. At least the version I teach. There's versions that will tell you to exalt your ego and make your ego king and God. And those people will have a very materialistic life, and they will achieve a certain amount of ascension and no further. True liberation, true left hand, is to be so liberated that even that ego has no control over the divinity that you are. So we're going to do one more exercise. Oh, the other thing I was going to say that I almost forgot. One of the reasons I was having trouble remembering how to say the breathes and which way to breathe is there's an easy way to remind yourself, and I forgot it. If you have someone who's a weightlifter, who's ever done like weightlifting, not necessarily professionally, but just you go to the gym and everything. Who goes to the gym, right? Who does that stuff? Anybody? You do? Okay. Just a little bit, right? What do they tell you to do when you're lifting something heavy? Do they tell you to breathe in when you're lifting or breathe out when you're lifting? What do they tell you to do?
It's in, right?
No, it's out. It's definitely out. So like in martial arts, if I throw a punch, they'll tell you when you're throwing a punch, you need to
Breathe out.
You need to breathe out. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're getting punched, what do? You breathe out, right? Right. So anything. I'm sorry. You hold it, but you don't want to breathe out like if through the. You're gonna like throw yourself up. Okay. But you don't want to be breathing in either. You want to tense up for when you're getting hit. But when you're punching, you want to breathe out. When you're lifting a heavy weight, you want to breathe out. Now that is not just good biomechanics. It is because our bodies as mammals are just like every mammal. We used to walk on all fours, and mammals that walk on all fours, when we run, our bodies do this movement, right? You've seen something loping along with all four, right? And they do like this kind of a movement, and their body kind of arches in the middle, right? Well, what's happening is their body is compressing and opening that diaphragm energy center of the lower third chakras. All three of those chakras are being squished and opened and squished. It's like a bellows. Have you ever noticed that when you run, if you do any running, I used to, it doesn't look like it, but I used to do some running. When you're doing running or any kind of cardio, you hit a rhythm where you're breathing out and in, and the out and in happens to be in a rhythm where your most exertion is happening when you're breathing out, and your least exertion is when you're breathing in. Okay. If you're really good at it, you'll find every stride is a breath out and every recovery is a breath in. And you get like this stride going, and your breath just happens in a pattern. If you're doing weight training, you can have the same thing happen. Okay.
It's like a cadence.
It's like a cadence, right? Definitely like a cadence. But what's also happening is, so you're energizing your body with your breath. As below, so above. If you're energizing your body with the breath when you're exercising, the same thing can apply to your spiritual energy. They're linked. They're hand in hand. And of course, if you're feeling blue and tired and down and low lack of energy, the mistake spiritualists will think is that you can just invoke a spiritual thing and that'll energize you. Now, while there's some truth to that, remember the story of the tricycle with one wheel or two wheels or whatever. Can you really do it with just one? Technically, you can try. You might get somewhere, especially on two wheels. This is why every action we take usually has at least two things to it. You either have a mental and a physical, or a mental and a spiritual. But to really do it right, you need to engage all three fully. So if you're feeling down, how many of you feel a little energized right now? Anybody? Or are you guys feeling kind of like, that was mellow? Like, how do you feel from that?
Definitely
Feel
energized.
better. Feel definitely more awake.
Okay. And if you don't, you can stimulate that with that breathing exercise. Breathe a little faster. You don't necessarily have to breathe in longer. Instead of breathing in every 3 to 4 seconds, in, out, in, you can make it quicker. You can go just for a little bit, just for a few beads, just for like 5-10 beads, especially towards the end, right? And it'll just kind of energize you a little bit. But the solar plexus isn't just about being energized. It's about manipulating and expressing energy. That means sometimes mellowing down. It sometimes means to bring yourself to a lower energy state and just relax. Okay. So I hope we have enough time left. I think I'm going to go an extra 5 or so minutes today because we had that little interruption with the noise. I hope you guys don't mind. So what we'll do is we're going to touch on something called a Qiball. How many of you guys know how to do a Qiball? Have you guys ever done a Qiball? Probably nobody. You've done a Qiball. All right, John. Cool. We might also do Psi wheels at some point. Those are a little trickier. It'll be harder for me to demonstrate because I'd have to do weird, funky things with my camera. But we're going to do Psiballs today. Now, we sort of started to touch on it last week with feeling. But to really do it, you need to be able to get all 3 lower chakra kind of firing on at least some of their cylinders, okay? You can't have them all, just puttering out. You got to get them all pretty much working, okay? So using our solar plexus energy today, what we're going to do is we're going to create and visualize a sphere of force, really not so good there, mouth, a sphere of force between our hands. And each one of you may imagine it and feel it differently. Each one of you may feel it the same way. I find it easiest for me to feel it as a repulsive force. And I said this last time, kind of like a little balloon between your hands. It's going to feel like there's either an inflated balloon between your hands or a magnetic push. If you've ever tried to bring 2 magnets close together and they just mysteriously resist each other, there's like this sensation of resistance. Now, this can be tricky. Most people can get this between the first and third time they try it. It's not hard. The trick is you've got to allow yourself to feel the subtlest things going on in your body. You've got to allow yourself to feel, don't expect it to feel like a solid object. Expect it to almost be like your imagination, because you can easily push right through it. If you say, I feel it, and you can easily bring your hands together because the physicality of your being is much more dense than that spiritual truth of yourself. So as you create this thing, you can easily just squish it. Okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to create one. We're going to do this energetically properly the first time. We're going to charge a Qiball, okay? And we are going to bring it back into ourselves, because this practice is just to create and then bring it back. In magic, you can experiment with this. If we have time, we'll do both. We'll create a Qiball or a Psiball. And it can even just be a bolt of lightning if you want to visualize that at some point. It can be anything. But for now, we're going to keep it as just a feeling of physical force. like the Force from Star Wars, like a weird repulsion. We're going to create that right over our solar plexus. And then when we're done, we're going to inhale it right back into our solar plexus. But if you want, in magic, you can charge that little ball of force with an intention, with an idea, with a visualization, with a desire, however you want to express it. You can charge it with that. But we're not going to do that really until we get a little bit more into the throat chakra, because that has a lot to do with expression and flavoring things and communicating things. So this is just the energy, right? Action without purpose. It is just the energy that we're getting to happen. Then later on, we're going to put in our intentions and our changes that we want to do with it. And by doing this, you can get to the point where you can have just better magical energizing of your ritual space and your intentions. You can even do ritual just with a psi wheel or a psi ball. You can charge a psychic energy ball. Remember what I said about simple things, things that are easy, like a siphon with the gas is already near the top and you just little suck and it'll get it going, versus if it's like all the way at the bottom, you go a couple times to make it go. This would be something you can do for most simple things. I don't know if you guys noticed, by the way, did you notice my phone going off and ringing? My mom called. Remember what I said before? Do you guys remember what I said before? My mom called right in the middle. In fact, I can prove it.
Wow.
Give me a second. Don't call her. You're going to see her number. Oops. No. You don't need to hear it. Where is it? Come on. At least I'm pretty sure it was her. It looked like her. Maybe it was just my intention to see her made it turn into her. Where are you? I hate my phone. There it is. Okay. Recents. So I don't mind if you guys, in fact, I'm going to cover this just for the sake of video. I don't want people to know anything about me too much. But so can you see there? That's
Yeah.
That was my mom. So I'll probably blur that. We'll see. I don't want people like finding out things. My mom called right in the middle of that. So what do you think happened? I had playfully come up with the intention, and then it turned into what? While I was doing what? As I was energizing myself, something about that idea was an attachment. By energizing myself, I let it go. Here she is. Okay? Happens all the fucking time. I'm sorry to curse, but it happens all the time when you learn to do this stuff. That was a perfectly synchronistic moment, okay? I couldn't have made that up. I suppose my wife could have texted her and said, hey, call him in a minute. That'll be really funny. But that didn't happen, I swear. So, okay. Let's do this. So everybody get, again, into a sort of a meditative posture. And with practice, you don't always have to do this. And remember what I said before. These lengthy meditations and things are things you do regularly until they become second nature, until you can just, and there it is. Okay? You'll see some days I have an on day where I'm literally just like, boosh, and there it is. And then there's days where it's like, can't get it, right? So that happens to everybody. So in Qigong, there's very simple ways to do this. This is like entry-level Qigong. And a lot of this comes from Qigong influence. I've never studied, like I never went to China and took Qigong. Some of the martial arts classes I did, we did some of it. But I study this by reading on it. And I don't know Iron Shirt and all that cool stuff. That's not what I'm doing. It's just the fundamentals of energy. It's almost like Tai Chi as well. It's a little bit in there too. So what I want you guys to do. So you're going to begin. You can start by clapping your hands. Rub them together. Don't do it too hard. Just a little bit. Just get them a little bit livened up. I'm wearing gloves, so it feels a little weird. Okay. And I want you to breathe just normal. Do this a little bit. Maybe slap yourself up here a little bit. Okay. Now what I want you to do, everybody's a little bit different. Okay, some of you are going to have to start like this. Some of you are going to start like this. It's all going to be different for everybody. I recommend you start big and go small. Because most people, it's like a matter of focus. Like even for me, like I have a hard time getting it smaller than this at first. I can shrink it there, but getting it there is a little bit hard at first. And what you're going to be doing is, imagine like a beach ball that you're compressing into more and more and more compressed energy as you go. As you breathe into it, You're going to feel it and squish it, and you're going to go with it. Let's just form it. Let's start by forming it, okay? Then we'll worry about focusing it. So, okay. I want you just for a moment, put yourself back in your solar plexus. And breathe normally and visualize it charging. Visualize it getting brighter as you draw energy in through the environment or up through your chakras if you want to do it that way. Either one is fine. And if you're like me, you can do this. This does help. In a way, this helps you you might even start to feel the ball before you even make it. Okay, now at some point when you feel you're ready, place your hands approximately in the same level as where your solar plexus is. It could be a little high, a little low, it's fine. And I want you to I'm going to do it right here because this is where I get the best luck for me to start. I want you to, this is sort of a complex visual, but I want you to imagine and visualize as you breathe out that your breath energy is going through that solar plexus and creating a sphere of force between your hands. And I want you to very gently, now watch me if you can, very gently and slowly, I want you to just sort of feel with your hands, just bring it in and out, in and out. And at some point you might feel a little push of resistance. Sometimes you have to move your hands so little that they're not moving. It's almost like you're moving inside your flesh, almost like your bones are moving and your skin is not. It's going to be this very, very light movement. And I want you to breathe out and imagine this ball filling with more and more energy and becoming firmer and firmer. And just keep doing that and just keep feeling. So I got mine. How many of you guys have one? Anybody have one?
Got one.
Jeff has one. Matt Hatter
I
has
got
one.
one.
You got one? You can feel it? Have you ever felt that before?
No, but I feel exactly what you were talking.
Okay. Tatum, have you got anything? It's okay if you don't. This takes practice.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes. You feel something?
I
Okay.
got it. Yeah.
Okay. Damien, anything for you?
I feel it.
Okay. And just be honest, if you guys don't feel it, don't feel pressured into feeling it. I want you guys to, because this can be mind-blowing the first time you do it sometimes. For me, it was. The first time I did this, I went, what is happening? And I started Googling all over the world. What the hell is happening here? What psychosomatic thing is happening? Is it like my meat moving around my bones? What am I feeling here? So just create it and hold it for a little bit. I'm going to watch you guys for a minute. Try to make it as stiff and powerful as you can. I know it sounds bad, guys. Don't take that out of... Get it. Make the ball firm and forceful. Feel it. Breathe into it. Imagine, feel, visualize, know that as you breathe out, some of that energy that make sure you're taking energy in from the environment. You got to be careful because you can overdo it and you can kind of expend all of your energy, so to speak. Your own psychic energy, and not bring anything in to recover. So make sure that energy is coming from around you. Visualize and feel it. And if you lose concentration, you can do it in stages. It's hard to multitask this. Visualize charging, visualize energizing the ball, visualize it firming, and then feel it a little bit. And just keep doing that. You don't have to do it all at once if it's difficult. Now, how many of you are able to hold it with all of this distraction going on? Okay. All right, good. All right, so let's keep charging it a little bit. Even if you lose sight of it, it's still there. You can still find it again. Okay. Okay. Now, once you have it, I want you to try compressing it without losing it. The trick is to constantly feel that pressure as you push in. If you lose the pressure, you got to go back out. And take your time. There's no rush on this. And you may find there's a point you just can't make it any smaller. That does happen. And it may get harder because you're charging it this whole time. It may get firmer. It may get to the point where it's really just going to feel, I mean, it'll literally, sometimes it'll feel like you've got a solid object in your hands. You know you could crush it with your fingers easily. But there's this feeling like, I can't make it smaller. I just can't. When we get it down to like the size of a, we'll say like a softball or so, take your time. Sometimes the longer it takes, the better. Ooh, that's getting hard there. Okay, when your hands get about 4 or 5 inches apart, almost softball sized, we're going to try an experiment really quick. This is difficult. This is kind of advanced for some people. Keep that ball feeling in your hands. And I want you to start shifting your hands, if you can see me doing it. Shift your hands like this and tell me if it changes how it feels. Does it feel like a solid object is moving in your hands? Or are you losing it in one hand and keeping it in the other? Or is it feel like there's some kind of motion happening between your hands? Go very slowly, very slowly. You want to feel those subtle feelings. And if not, that's okay. This is just sort of, can you feel that yet? Go back to charging it. No intention, just energy, just the intention to feel it. And if you have to, you can bring your hands open a little bit and squish more energy into it. Because by doing that, you lost a little concentration. You might have lost a little bit of focus. It might have lost a little energy. Okay. Now I want you to visualize it getting firm like glass. I want it to stop being soft. I want you to make it hard. You can't make your hands go closer together at all. It's a firm, hard object. Maybe it's got a little rubberiness, but it is solid. It can help if you go into a gazing state. Sometimes you can even see it. Some people even see it in their third eye, in their mind's eye. Okay. Now, this can get addictive, especially the first time you're playing with it. So what I want you to do now is I want you to start bringing it towards your chest. Move your hands, but keep the feeling. And bring it towards your solar plexus slowly. And when you feel, you might even start to feel it making connection with the skin of your chest. You might feel something behind your chest, feeling a pressure. Try not to lose control of it. It can be very easy to drop. You can stop charging it, just keep control of it. When you get sort of close to your chest, if you don't feel it, that's fine. But if you do, or you don't, when you feel it's the right time, what I want you to do is inhale. When you inhale, I want you to feel, visualize, and know it go back into your solar plexus. You might even feel it getting sucked in. You can actually feel like a suction or like a balloon letting the air out. It's kind of hard for me to maintain focus and talk. Okay. Take your time. Just breathe it in when you're ready. And when you guys are done, just raise your right hand so I can see you're done. I don't want to interrupt you too much. And if you do lose it and you can't get it back, it's okay. It does happen sometimes. So long as you're regulating that chakra occasionally with some energy intake, you'll be fine. Awesome. Looks like Damien's got it. Good. All right. So everybody, I think you got it, right? Everybody inhaled it, hopefully. Okay. So once again, just confirm for me, how many of you guys have ever felt that before besides Jeff? I know Jeff has done this before. How many of you guys have felt that before? Did it seem completely real? What was it like?
I've never felt that before, but I could feel the moving, like my skin moving in my hands. It kind of freaked me out. Then I lost focus of it because I think it was exciting.
For a lot of people who practice this, why do you think I took you through all your 3 chakras first? Do you guys understand now? People are like, oh, I don't want to do chakra work. Oh, it's just like homework. I already had a couple people going, what are we doing chakra for? This is why. To make connections, to feel, and to manipulate the energy. You can't do that. Don't do magic the way I do it. It won't work. You got to be able to do that stuff. It's very, very central. All of the bibbity bobbity boo about Lucifer, Satan, and the 17 apostrophes doesn't matter if you can't do the basics of this. I mean, sure, it'll be great. People get something out of it. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying, if I seem a little elitist, it's because there is a difference. There is a reason why this works. There's a reason why every mystical master throughout history did something like these things. Even deep prayer gets you to these weird altered states of transcendental ability. Deep Christian prayer can even do this for some people. There's hidden mysteries even in the Christian school. They just don't teach them to the masses. These things are absolutely elementary. Why do you think they're almost never taught to you guys? If you open, the Lemegeton, or if you open up, the Hermetic Principles, why are they not in there? Those are the pearls that they don't like casting before swine. This is the stuff. The other stuff is safe. To teach someone that they are the universe is easy. To teach someone to move this energy, though, can be a distraction and can be a danger. You've got to be in a place where you are already capable of being whole, being non-dual. You have to be in a place, whether it's not that, maybe for you it's something else. Maybe you are a theist. Maybe you really believe in a God and that's how you operate, and that's fine. But you've got to be in a place of centeredness, because this can get crazy. You can get addicted to playing with this stuff. I remember the first couple times I did this, for the first couple days, I did this several times a day, and I really burnt my little servos and energy centers out, and I had a hard time doing it again for a couple of days. Practice this slowly and take your time. Now, there's some weird, cool tricks you can do with this, besides just filling it with your intention and stuff. One of the things that I was able to do is you can do the same thing with your fingers, and you can actually hold it, especially if you practice the semi-BS way of seeing auras. I say semi-BS because they'll tell you got to hold your hand in front of a dark curtain or something, or a white wall, and you'll see an aura around your hand. Now that's a visual after image that happens when the things in the back of your retinas burn out slowly from contrast. I know this because I'm a visual artist, and I know how this works, because if you have clashing colors, that's exactly why if you have the right color red, it'll like look like it's hovering around the page, it'll mess your vision up. It's a very similar process. However, something about our psyche connects to that after image and will start imposing intuitive understanding on top of it, and you can sort of somehow just begin to visualize something that does exist, which is the first layer of your energy field that extends like a little bit past your body or sometimes below it. You can visualize it and you can see it, even if just in your mind's eye, right? Even if it's just your imagination, it can become so vivid it might as well be real, just like that ball. If you ask a scientist to sit there and measure what's between my hands, they'd say it feels a little warmer because his hands are getting closer together, but I don't feel anything. Look, I'm probing it. Nothing's happening, but I feel it. And I guarantee that you can do it in a way with a partner where they can feel it, though maybe not as distinctly. Maybe some of it will be guesswork. Some of it's a little imaginary, but yes, you can feel it with other people with practice. So what's being exchanged? Well, it's kind of a communication. That's one thing. There is a communication going on. And we haven't covered the throat chakra, but we're going to get there eventually. But we're sharing an idea because they know to expect it half the time. If I did this to someone sensitive and I didn't tell them, I snuck up behind them and did the thing with my hand, maybe they'll sense it. I'm going to say, maybe better than 50-50. If they know it's coming, they're going to be receptive to it and go, oh, yep, I feel it. Even if just because their own mind is creating it for you. But that doesn't mean it's not important. That doesn't mean it's not useful. It doesn't mean that it's not magical. It just takes it out of the objective materialistic perspective and puts magic where it belongs in a subjective place that happens to bleed into the objective as well, but comes from here and goes out. Okay. Magic isn't a thing that exists out here and comes into you. Magic is a thing that is in you and out here at the same time. Just like the analogy of the ocean and the wave, you are the ocean, not the wave, and the wave is a thing you're doing. And the wave has no purpose. So as we're doing this with these balls, you can actually do cool tricks with it. You can do things where you can bring your fingers together. It's not a ball. You can visualize energy as you bring them closer together, like a spark between your fingers, and literally feel a weird tingling that feels like electrical current between your fingers. You can see a little white line looking like what do they call it? Ectoplasm, like white ectoplasm from an old horror movie between your fingers, just kind of reaching out and touching each other. What the heck is going on? Is that just psychosomatic? I guess, but is psychosomatic magic or not? It works, doesn't it? Even scientists know it works. Does it matter what we call it if it works? Does it matter if it's objectively real if it works? Who cares? Don't be attached to it being real. Let it be fake but still work. Who cares? Then it'll be more real for you than if you could prove it to a scientist. It'll be real. It'll be firmer than the chair you're sitting on because you can do it anytime you want. Promise you can. This is coming from someone who went hard skeptic and came back. So you can feel that. You can experiment using the wand mudra. You can experiment using the sword mudra. What does it feel like? What does it change? This is more advanced. You may not be able to do this right away. Maybe some of you can. Hopefully you're not just fooling yourself with your imagination. But then again, is it just your imagination? Probably not. It's okay. The proof is in the pudding. If you feel like you're doing it and nothing's happening when you put it into practice, maybe it is just with the lowercase j, your imagination. Maybe you are hoping too much. Maybe you're too attached to doing it and not achieving it. If you let go a little bit and let it just be a game, though, sometimes it really will surprise you. So you can do things like I've actually, from other places, like I've put one hand over here and one over here, or I've had them behind my head, or I've been sitting, and I will inscribe things on the palm of my hand, and I will feel, especially if I do it intentionally at first, I can feel my finger, almost like my finger is tracing something on my hand. It's the weirdest feeling. And it sounds far-fetched, but you absolutely can feel it with practice, especially if you warm up a little bit first. Do your meditation, get the blood flowing, get the energy flowing, get yourself revved up and do it. You can feel that. And to feel it, which chakra are we using to feel that? Who wants to guess?
The root.
Nope.
Sacral.
The sacral. The sacral is the one you're using to
Sacral,
feel with. The sacral is how you're feeling it. The root is how you're connecting to it. The solar plexus is how you're doing it. Okay? So as you do this, you can do all these cool little things with it. Now imagine what I just taught you being turned into, I'm charging my candle. There's a big difference between I'm pointing at a candle and saying some words and visualizing something, and I can feel something happening. Big difference. We're talking go from being a bum working at a tree nursery to having your own business doing this. We're talking life changes. We're talking things that matter to you. And to eventually you go, I don't care. I'm going to go back to the practice of doing it and not care if I get anything out of it. That is the difference. It's a big difference. It's why I will, quite often, I laugh because not many occultists will put their ritual videos up because they don't know how to do this. They literally are just standing there with a book just going blah, 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 in the name of this and that and 6 other things and blah, blah, blah. And they'll tell you, I'm going to all these places in my head. Okay. I'm not saying it won't work, because it still will. But the men from the boys, the kids from the adult, the women from the girls, all of that is separated out. Are you just going through motions? Are you pantomiming a real magician, a real sorcerer, a real mystic? Or are you one? If you're pantomiming it, you're not doing anything except for doing a little stage play in which you say, Hail Lucifer 17 times and spin around in a circle and jerk off on a sigil. Doesn't do anything by itself. It's edgy symbolism, or if you're a new age yoga pants wearing type, it's pretty little symbolism with essential oils and the goddess and the god comes down and touches you here and there and magic happens. That's all fine too. But if you're not feeling it and moving these energies around, you're not even doing a stage performance, in my opinion. I might even have more. I've seen stage performances that have weird effects on reality more than, because they're not attached to an outcome. They're just, I'm doing Hamlet and like suddenly I just have like this in-law that like, hits my mom or whatever. So, all right. So I think we're pretty much done for today. Before I go, because we did have that little interruption and it looks like we still have a few more minutes. Let's go over any questions or comments before we go too far. I'm going to go down one by one, and anything that comes to mind that you want to ask or say, it could just be thank you. It could be this sucked, I'm never coming back. Whatever you want it to be. What would you say? Damien, we'll start with you because you're at the top of my list. We're going to put you on the spot, brother. Any thoughts, questions, or ideas for today's session? And going forward.
I thought it was pretty interesting to actually feel the Chiball. It felt like a repulsion of energy. But I did feel like I was losing it a little bit when I was trying to draw it in towards the solar plexus.
Totally normal, because you're kind of, it's one thing to feel it. It's another thing to feel like it's moving and to hear me talking and then maybe feel like you're on the spot because you're the only one doing it and all that stuff. So it could be a little weird. Practice that alone. Don't worry about it. At some point you got to get, so you can do it in full view of people, because remember, there's going to be spirits around you that you might sense around you. You're going to feel nervous while you're doing it with some spirit there. Maybe not. Maybe you'll just be too into it to care. Guess what you can also feel? You can feel spirit touches by using this same technique. You can feel them in the room. They can touch you and you can feel it using that same kind of technique. It doesn't happen often, and I don't talk about it much because it's just like, sure, Thorne, I'm sure you can feel that. Sure. All right. I can feel it. Maybe you can't, when you do it. Maybe you can't feel it when I do it, but it's there. So don't stress about it. Just keep practicing it. Just keep doing that. Now I'm going to tell you guys, if you do it, best practices, warm up a little bit with some meditation. You don't have to do an hour, a half hour. You can do one full repetition around your mala if you want, or a half, but just do it for a little bit and just get all of your chakra going. But at least twice this week, I want you to practice the solar plexus chakra for a full span around your mala. And when you're done, practice a Qiball, okay? If you do it more often than that, be careful because you could burn out. I've had it where I could feel it and then I just couldn't feel it for a few days. My hands are wiggling and nothing's happening. Maybe I'm moving too fast. It just feels wrong. I know it's there. I believe it's there, but I don't feel it. My hands just feel like clubs. They don't feel anything. So don't burn out. Give yourself a day or two of rest and make sure you inhale that and visualize it coming back in and make sure the energy is coming from all around you, not just you. Make sure remember the siphon story. You're not trying to like inflate a balloon and just, blah, you're trying to get a siphon going is what you're trying to do. Okay. So let's move down. Thank you very much, Damien. That was a good comment. Let's move down to, who do I have next? I don't know if Harvest is able to talk. I'm going to unmute them for a second. Harvest, are you there? Do you have a comment or a question? No, I think they muted themselves. If you have, you can type it into Inner Sanctum, but that's okay. I'll give it a second. I'll come back. Type it into Inner Sanctum if you do. I'll come back to you. Noel, looks like Noel is just listening. I don't know if Noel is able to communicate. So Noel, if you want to have a question or comment, you can put it in Inner Sanctum. Amobius, you are here, however. I will go to you next. So Amobius, question or comment or thought or whatever for this session.
Yeah, I did have a question about when we were making the Qiball.
Sure.
I felt everything except I felt a very strong force pulling my hands together.
That's a very interesting comment. Okay. So it could be just like you're misinterpreting a feeling, or it could be that that's what you're doing by accident. You can actually create a negative Qiball that actually, I've called them a black Qiball, a void ball. There's all different ways to describe it. A yin ball instead of a yang ball. We've been making a yang ball, really, is what it would be called. A yin ball will feel like a pulling force, and you may feel it on the back of your hands. You may feel something like pulling like glue on the palms of your hands, pulling your hands together. That is actually like a vampiric drain energy ball. That not necessarily, it doesn't have to be, but that's a negative energy ball, and they have their own uses. If that's just how it manifests for you, I'm not going to tell you it's necessarily wrong, but I would try to encourage you to feel the pressure of a creation of a positive energy first. It could be that you're pushing so much energy into that spot, it's sort of like you feel a pull instead because so much of your energy is pouring into it. Okay. Did you feel a pressure at all, or just a pull?
I could feel the like my blood skin feeling like it was moving. Definitely a resistance wiggle. But then when I was going to push it together, it was wanting to pull together.
Okay, so that may be that your intention was just that good. Maybe your intention was just, okay, I'm making this thing smaller, so it maybe just pulled you in. Possible.
Okay.
Possible.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. The only thing with that is that might be that you're actually pulling the energy back in and it's shrinking it. So we're trying to condense it down into, visualize it like a pearl, a hard pearl at the center, or the stories go that if you do this enough with enough energy and practice, you can make a solid object appear that people can see. I think that's mostly, but hey, if it happens, send me a picture and have me over. I want to see it. So I'm not gonna tell you you're a liar unless I see that you're a liar. So go for that and visualize and feel it. And at some point you may get there, at least to the point where you're convinced there's something in my hand. Maybe it doesn't have a physical form I can see, but I know. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever dreamt that you were holding something, and when you woke up, you could still feel it in your hand? Have you ever I don't know, something? I've had dreams like that where I bought something I always wanted and I didn't have it in real life.
I actually have when I was a little kid at that exact thing where I was like, oh, it's not real.
Yeah.
But in my dream, It was so real.
Same process is going on. In fact, you may have manifested a very solid egregore sensation of that object because your dream world is not that different, right? Your sense of this reality is limited to what you think is here. There could be right now in your presence that thing that you always wanted still hanging around you in your energy world, in your little astral world, and you could potentially reach out and grab it anytime you want and find it again. It could be there. That's a little superstitious-y, but since we create our reality that way, that tulpa probably is there or reachable or creatable again. And you could experience that kind of fun all over again. Again, in dreams, our senses are often very muted, right? If you chop your hand off, it doesn't feel anything like what it would feel like to chop your hand off. If you get punched in the face, you'll feel something. I'm not saying you won't feel anything. Don't mistake what I'm saying when I say that the astral has no feeling. It's very muted. Like colors are very desaturated, and
Yeah.
even though you still think they're saturated, taste is less saturated. Feeling is less. I shot myself in the head in a dream, and it just felt like I got slapped. That's all it felt like. Oh, I just turned off my hearing. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
So let's move down to Tatum, the illustrious Tatum. Tatum, what
Yes,
did you
can you hear me?
experience, or did you have a thought? Yes, I hear you good.
Well, when I was making the chi ball, and you mentioned of making it more of like a harder substance, I felt more like a air swirling a little bit around it when I was making it, and then it started getting a little heavier, and I could see it. It was like almost like turning into like this huge, like orange and yellow marble.
Cool. Okay. Yep.
That's what it was turning into.
Sure.
And when I was finally bringing it down to inhale it back in, this is gonna sound funny, but I inhaled it in, and I felt a pop,
Mm-hmm.
and actually made me burp.
Okay. Fair. No,
Yeah,
weird
so-
stuff happens like that. I'm not
Yeah.
laughing at you. I'm laughing with you. That's
Like,
pretty
okay.
interesting. So, one of the exercises you can do, especially when you get later in the upper chakra that people usually have a little trouble with, we can take energy and intention. Most people can get their throat working pretty good because most people can talk, right? Most people, unless you're a little shy, right? Like I have no problem. My throat chakra is overactive. I'm constantly having to regulate it back down a little bit. Like with my third eye, I'll charge up a Psiball, a Qiball. I'll move it towards my head, and I will slowly pull it into my forehead, my third eye area. And when I hit a point, I can feel it touching something in my sinus back of my head. I feel something just like on my hands. I will feel a pressure. And when I start to feel it, it's almost like I'm trying to fit something that's rubbery that will fit if I squish it into a smaller thing, like, and I find like the right angle, and I just pull it in, just suck it right into my third eye, and it'll energize it, and I'll have even better experiences with that if I keep doing that for a little bit. And of course, by focusing on it, you're helping it, right? And I'm not necessarily even visualizing a chakra. It's just the center of awareness. For the longest time, I didn't use chakra as chakra. That's why I keep telling, that's why Green Mist, I was telling him earlier. Chakra, I don't see as chakra first. I saw them as centers of awareness first, and then later learned that there's chakra that are attached to them. So chakra is just an idea. But they're an easy idea to talk about. They're a very good, you go around the world, you can Google chakra, and you get halfway decent information. And don't kill yourself over trying to find the traditional truth, because there isn't one. Chakras have been used in many different disciplines. Many different masters have different interpretations. Many different stories are told about them. It's the fundamental nature of them that matters. They're centers of awareness that correspond to different things about our energy body. And you got to decide what they mean for you to some level for them to work. Think of them like you've got a place in your body where a lever can connect, but there's no lever there necessarily. A chakra is just a form of a lever. So you got like a little empty place, you put your lever in, now you can make this contraption move. It's just an interface. It's just like attaching a keyboard to your computer. It's like, aha, now I can interface with my energy body in an intentional way. And if you don't use chakra, you can use anything. You can just focus on that idea even. Your body energy centers will know what to do. You don't even have to create chakra there. You don't even have to think of them. You can dissolve them and turn them into a single soul star. Those centers of awareness you can't get rid of. That's why I laugh when the people say, I have my chakras removed. I say, okay. So you just got rid of a thought form idea that somebody gave you. You didn't actually get rid of anything, because if I ask you, what's that? You're going to know what that is, right? If I tell you to feel a spot behind your belly button, most people can find it again. So you didn't get rid of anything. You've kind of created a different layer of your illusion, right? And if somebody's attacking you psychically with vampiric energies and so on, they will often, either intentionally or unintentionally, target different chakra on you. Most vampires attack from the throat down. They very rarely go after third eye or your crown, because they're kind of too ephemeral and weird. They can't really do anything to that. But they can get your ability to communicate. They can get your ability to feel emotionally. They can get your ability to act. They can get your ability to feel physically. And they can definitely make you feel anxiety and upset. So That's maybe if you guys are with me when we start talking about the Vampire Handbook, if we ever go that far, which hopefully we will. But so, all right. Was that it, Tatum? If not, I'm going to move on to Mr. Mad Hatter himself.
Yeah, that was it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Let me blow up Mad Hatter so we can see him good. There we go, Mad Hatter. What's up, brother? What's going on?
What's up?
So, any comment, question, or concern about this class before we move on?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. All right, cool. So then that's it. I'm not going to talk to you then. We'll talk on Wednesday anyway. So, all right. So for next week, so what do we have? We managed to cover the 3 lower chakra. What are we on for day-wise? I think it's a shorter month, but what are we up to here? I want to see what we get to cover before Patreon decides to be patronizing and get you guys again. So yeah, so next week will be the end of the month, and then the first will be coming after that. So next week, we are probably, most likely, I'll have to see where the wind blows me, but I'd like to give the chakras a little bit of a rest. Okay, not that you can't proceed a little bit on your own. You can keep using all of my chakra meditation videos and just kind of use the principles that I showed you to explore them, and then maybe we can figure out together what they mean for you guys besides just what I'm telling you. But we'll give them a break, but I still want you guys, even if we stop talking about them, at least once or twice a week, preferably twice, do a full meditation on all the chakras together. You can do it in one shot. You know, you can set a timer and switch videos, or you can use no videos and just sit in silence and work on each one. You'll notice that those videos are harmonically tuned. Each one is tuned to the energy of that chakra. If you notice that that one was pretty much an E, and it's a very solid wah, it just sounds like an electrical current, right? It just feels like, so the heart's going to feel a little different. The throat's going to feel and sound a little different. So work on those 2, work on those 3. But this week, just focus on the solar plexus, just this week, okay? Next week, I think we're going to go through, who here doesn't have Become the Maelstrom? I think all of you guys do, right? Does anybody not have it? Everybody's got a copy? Okay. So we're probably going to go through that next week, and it'll probably be, you know, something I'm going to go on the whim to see what you guys need. Maybe we'll cover each section one by one a little bit, and we're going to try to get through a couple of chapters of it next week. We're not necessarily going to read it. Maybe we'll just talk about it. But if you want to refresh yourselves, try to read the first book, Foundations, again before our next method. If you can, get as much as you can through that. Have it fresh enough in your mind so that if we go over it, we don't necessarily have to reread it. But I will be reading passages out of it and talking about them a little bit. So we're going to really try to illustrate a little bit about the Trinity of Self and how it relates to you, how you can use it. I don't know how many of you guys really understand it yet or use it at all, or if it's just a cool symbol, but it's like, I put it on my altar, but it's like, I don't know what it really means. I don't know what it really does. It looks cool. So we're going to try to get you from that, this is cool, or I kind of get it, to really open that up and give you guys a more holistic understanding of it so that you can start utilizing it whenever you're in magic, even if all it does for you, which for me a lot of times all it does is it makes me remember mental, spiritual, physical, bring them all together in ritual. It doesn't even have to go super big in the metaphysics, but it does help. So we're going to cover that probably next week and some of the other chapters. So hopefully I see you guys all next week, okay?
All right.
All right. I think you guys did great. Thanks a lot, guys. All right.
Right.
All right.
Thank you.
Text me if you guys have any problems or any comments. All right. All right, guys.
Take care.
Thanks.
Take care now.